Welcome to the Nonprofit Report, your update on nonprofit organizations, issues, and leaders, viewable on YouTube and M. Oppenheim TV. I'm your host, Mark Oppenheim, and today we're discussing protecting and supporting the children of the great state of Georgia with our special guests, Judy Fitzgerald, Executive Director, Cindy Abel, the Chair of the Board of Directors of Voices for Georgia's Children, and Katie Landis, Director of the Georgia Afterschool Network at GSAN, is an initiative of Voices, and I'm so happy to have you all here today. I really am interested in how you approach this because as I began to research Voices, I got a lot of texture that I didn't have at the beginning. Judy, Cindy, and Katie, thank you so much for being here.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for having us and giving us the opportunity to share the work that we are really passionate about, which is improving the lives of children in Georgia. So I'd love to start and just tell you a little bit about the organization and where we came from and what we're up to.
Let's jump into that. Let's jump into how you see Voice, because there are other organizations that provide services, provide advocacy for children across the state of Georgia. So talk about, Judy, if you don't mind, the special place that Voices has, and also the name of the organization, Voices, how you conceptualize that articulation of your mission.
Yeah, okay, here we go. So Voices for Georgia's Children has been in existence for 21 years now. I should say I'm new to the role of executive director. I've been in place for about 9 months. But the organization was very familiar to me, and that is because it is so well known and widely respected in the state of Georgia for the research, policy, and advocacy work that we do. And really the unique role that the organization plays in the landscape has a couple of elements. First and foremost, we take a whole child approach. So, and what I mean when I use that language is we take a look at all of the elements of child well-being, and we don't narrow and specialize in one area like many of our important partners do. But not only do we look across and see all of those elements, but we see the way that those elements like health, education, physical well-being, mental well-being, we see how all of these are interconnected. And then we go to do our research and our policy and our advocacy work. That whole child view allows us to make recommendations by policy, budget, or otherwise that can operate on every level for the kids whose lives we're really trying to improve.
Now, we're talking primarily about not children like my children. My children have a lot of advantages. They have educated parents. They have parents who have achieved a certain economic level. We don't need as much support, although we benefit from the policies that an organization like yours advances. We don't need as much support as some of our neighbors do. So, Cindy, as you think about your involvement as a board member and the motivations of your fellow board members in being involved in this, how are you thinking about Georgia's children, the children who are part of families that are like mine, that where support is not as needed, and those children who need the support of an organization like Voices?
Well, frankly, I really look at Voices in the spirit that it was created, and it's for all the children of Georgia, not just, it's for the marginalized, it's for our kids that might have some more advantages than others. I just feel like the policy and advocacy work of the organization really looks at things that can impact any child in Georgia at any particular point in their life. You know, my kids had the lucky advantage of being recipients of the Georgia pre-K. A long time ago, it was a lottery where we all were hoping and praying that our child was going to be picked to be involved. And really at that time of my life, I was in a startup company working very hard with 3 young kids, and just having that opportunity to be able to have that one of my children in that program was essential. And now I look at
describe the program, if you will, so that those of us who aren't less familiar.
Well, I mean, I will actually ask Katie or Judy to chime in on it more than me. I was on the other side of receiving what that program was, but we have an organization that Voices for Georgia's Children is in partnership with, called GEARS, and they are focused on early childhood education. And really, if I'm right about this, ladies, they are the ones that have been really pushing the early education policy forward for a very, very long time. And that program that we have in Georgia has just expanded over the years. And I think it really helps a lot more families than it did even when I had small children. But I'll let you guys add. And one other thing I'll say is I think that our board of directors, everybody, we all have families. We all work and live in communities where we see, most of us are very active in other nonprofits or other issues related to children, either in our work. We have a lot of people on our board that work in academia in these particular issues. And so I think our board and how we select members of our board is really wide ranging and really touches all different areas of the work that Voices does. But I'll let Katie and Judy add to that.
Katie, you want to talk a little bit about this program that Cindy was referring to, and some of your other programs?
Sure, I'll jump in a little bit here, and Judy, I'll defer to you to jump in as well. But yeah, I mean, Cindy mentioned partners like GEARS. We are lucky in the state of Georgia to have so many different organizations that we're able to work alongside to advocate for all these different programs and policies that support the kids across Georgia. GEARS is just one of those partners. And Voices has, taken a long role in leadership alongside GEARS and others in advocating for access to early childhood education, like the pre-K program that Cindy's talking about, where, I think we're familiar with a lot of states now have these free pre-K programs that are in our schools as well as in private childcare centers across the state. Georgia was one of the first states to really jump into that, and Voices and other partners were key parts of that advocacy, as well as partnering with the state to really make sure that communication was had and that the program has continued to grow. I mean, I know Judy can talk more about Pre-K Week, but Pre-K Week is a really exciting initiative that Voices has to make sure that our lawmakers, our state lawmakers, our city elected officials, other leaders in communities are in pre-K programs across our state, seeing the impact that these programs have on our young people, on those 4-year-olds, on the families. And what that really is bringing them into a program so they're able to sit down and read to a class and just really leave with that feeling of what the Georgia pre-K program is and understanding why it's so critical to our communities.
Is part of this, Judy, a marketing and communication strategy to get everyone involved?
Yeah, that is one element of it, but talking about access to high quality pre-K education allows me to say one other really important thing about Voices, that from the start, Voices has always taken pride in and maintains that we are a nonpartisan organization. And talk about an issue that really does bring people from all sides of the aisle together, which is access to high quality pre-K for kids. You can imagine how helpful this is for working parents, right, who need that level of support in their local community. As Katie mentioned, sometimes it's in a private daycare center, sometimes it's in the local school, but giving kids that early opportunity to start learning and being exposed to high quality learning in that setting. They might also get access to a healthy meal that they might not otherwise access, and to know that this early start to a solid education is available throughout the entire state of Georgia is really, it's been a remarkable investment by the state. So our pre-K week, back to your point, when we have a week where we have legislators and elected officials and community partners of all kinds who send people into the classroom. Listen, they love now to take their social media pictures of them reading in the classroom and showing, and it really helps to underscore a state level commitment to early education and well-being for our kids. It really probably is one of the most dramatic statewide interventions that the state of Georgia has done, and we're lucky for it.
I like the point that you made about, first of all, nonpartisan. That seems to be a no-brainer. So many of our problems and our challenges in this country are just challenges that we all need to deal with. And I think that when it comes to children, that's fairly clear. But I think there's another point that's buried in there, and that is that there are certain ways that if you bring people together and you get them involved, maybe they're reading in front of a class, or maybe they're just achieving an understanding of the various types of programs that you offer, all of a sudden you start to engage people in solutions rather than in polemics and division. How does that manifest, Cindy, and Katie and Judy? How does that manifest in Georgia in a way where you might have seen a problem where there were disagreements in approach, and people came together and start to share and adjusted their approaches? You've all been in this business for a really long time. Can you cite an example where that actually has happened through this power of just sort of being together and kicking ideas around and sort of figuring it out in goodwill with children as a focus? Any examples come to mind?
I'm happy to take a start and then see where Cindy and Katie want to jump in. And thanks for underscoring this point of, in this era of polarization, you really try to find common ground on issues that everyone cares about, but they might have a different idea about how to address it.
And there's no one right idea, right?
Right.
I mean, there are things that work, and there are things that work better and things that work not as well, right? So you do the thing that works the best, and then if that doesn't work, you try something else, right?
Right, exactly. So, one of the things we pride ourselves on at Voices for Georgia's Children is our tagline is educate, convene, influence. And so convening folks to really come together for some of these difficult conversations. That is really part of what we want to do, and what we're recognized for is we will bring the evidence and we will bring recommendations about how to proceed. So one area that's been really important nationally and certainly in the state of Georgia is children's mental health. And what we know is that the pandemic revealed to all of us in our own homes, regardless of income and other issues, was the challenges that our young people were having, partly as a result of some of the effects of the pandemic, but there was very alarming national research to immediately point to teenagers and young people in particular having rising rates of depression and anxiety. I will say for a period of time, there was a lot of resistance to having mental health services available in the school for a variety of different reasons.
That's interesting.
The overwhelming...
Considering what's going on in the schools right now, I would think that would be embraced, but there was resistance, you're saying.
Yeah, over the course of time, that's been true. People concerned about whether or not parental consent would be involved, and schools are supposed to be about education. What we know and what the evidence suggests is the easier you can make it to access behavioral health services, the more likely you are to reach the children, youth, and families who need them. So there really has been a significant investment in the state of Georgia. The state's investment was in a program called Apex, which is now in over 700 schools. where communities are embracing the opportunity for kids to have local access and have their needs met in a way they don't need to get a ride. They don't, and they can, and we can
So
still.
these are mental health. This Apex program is about mental health?
It is in school, in
That's interesting.
elementary, middle, and high school settings, and it's been really remarkably successful. And again, even early resistors have come to see the power of making things. You got to meet kids where they are, right? And where they are, for the most part, is in school. So making it easier to access those services. So that was an example, I would say, where the tide has turned and the evidence is clear that accessibility really accelerates the ability to get the kind of help that a youth might need.
Katie, you
before
look
it's
like
a
you want to
crisis.
jump in.
Oh, no, I think that was a great example. I mean, I think there's others, but I mean, I think Judy talking about the youth mental health, that is, I think, a prime example of where all sides have really come together and to look at what are possible solutions to what we're seeing in our communities.
I thought that it's interesting how you divide your various areas of focus. There's solid start, health, stable families, fairness. I love that. I love that. And schooling and after school. Talk about fairness. Why fairness is it plays such a prominent role in how you describe yourself?
So I'll start there, and certainly Katie and Cindy might want to add. So fairness has been a really important basic value for voices. And I think one way to think about it's nice because it reflects back to how you started the conversation, Mark. Voices represents all youth in Georgia, but we do want to pay special attention to those youth who are farthest away from opportunity. Right. And so as you reflected, as Cindy reflected, as I might say, my kids have some opportunities right at their doorstep, but we are especially interested and want to make sure that we're lifting up the voices of those who are farthest from opportunity. And I think most folks do agree that every chance, if given the right opportunity, every child can thrive if they're given the opportunity. And so what we want to do is accelerate and enhance opportunity for those who might be a little further from it. In addition, when we know youth may get involved in some of our systems, whether that's the child welfare system or the juvenile justice system, we want to make sure that those youth really are treated fairly within those system level environments, and that they have the opportunity to access all the services and supports that might be available to them. So that's at the core of what fairness means for us.
So very interesting. Cindy, as you look at the governance responsibilities that your board has, governance generally includes the ability, of course, to hire and fire the chief executive officer, dealing with the finances and so on, also contributing in different ways, labor, expertise, ideas, and so on. How does the board shape itself so that it acts as a megaphone for the policy work and the other influencing activities to create partnerships beyond the bounds of the organization? How does the board actually function in that sense?
I think we're very fortunate. We have board members that are very, very engaged in all these conversations at some level or another. Like I mentioned before, I happen to be governance chair for 3 years, so I'm intimately involved with, our process for bringing on new board members and how we really look at the existing board that we have and how we bring on the talent that we need to have some of these very in-depth conversations. And a moment ago you were speaking to the bipartisan, Judy was talking about how important that is to our organization. It's equally important for us to have different voices represented on our board, so that, we have had times where the board has played a key role in looking at communication that's going forward to the community on something that we're advocating for, something that we're showing facts about, or research that we've done, to make sure that the language and how it's being received, on no matter where you stand on the political spectrum, really doesn't cause any conflict, but instead brings people together in a unified voice. So I think that our board, we have a lot of different expertise from the community and different areas that our different board members are involved in. But I also think that we have a board that's very highly engaged in the mission of the organization, and just in general supporting their efforts down at the Capitol, and making sure that we help them in whatever way we can, not just from a fiduciary perspective, which is obviously our biggest job, but also trying to help support their work, GSAN's work and the policy work of all the different directors within the organization. So.
And Katie, the GSAN network, talk a little bit about what that network means. What is the meaning of the network?
Absolutely.
And who participates?
Yeah, so GSAN, the Georgia Statewide Afterschool Network, we are one of 50 statewide afterschool networks across the state. So there is an afterschool network in all other 49 states as well. And while they all look different, there's some things that we all have in common. In Georgia, I would say the things that we really focus on are, one is the policy and advocacy work that Judy's already talked about. That is really the bread and butter of what Voices does. So really making sure that we are pushing forward and supporting policies that increase access to after school and summer learning opportunities for youth across our state, and not just our youngest learners, but really from ages 5 all the way up through 18. We also, beyond the policy and advocacy work, that network part of our name, we really look to be building bridges between out of school time, so after school and summer, to other issues like we've already talked about, juvenile justice or mental health, or the K-12 space. How are we really making those connections? And how are we also just that network and that hub for our after school and summer providers across the state? And the last thing that we really do is around strengthening quality. It's around working with the after school and summer programs that are already out there across our state. How are we providing them resources, training, technical assistance, and coaching to make sure that they really have at their fingertips the data, the best practices to understand what high quality programming can look like, and then also give them some of those resources to help them level up their quality so that young people are in more than just a safe space, but are really in a nurturing, enriching space that is connecting them to mentors, allowing them to explore careers or nature, tinkering with STEM or the arts, and really all the comprehensive piece that we know young people need, and really allows them to thrive when we're thinking of what they're doing in all those many hours outside of the school day.
What I hear are 3 different areas that are quite interesting. One is resources, right? How much resources, whether it's attention or money, usually it's money, are dedicated to children. The second piece is let's stop fighting with each other and try something. Right, getting people to experiment. And the third is collaborations. Could you talk a little bit about that latter piece, the collaborative efforts that you're engaged with others? And Judy, what kind of collaborations are you engaged in with government actors, with other partners, to try and push some of your policy agendas? And it's perfectly okay to cite some of those policy objectives that you have in this interview. It would be great to chat about those.
Yeah, excellent. It's important to say all the work that we do nothing on our own. We are, at every step we take, we are in collaboration, but with a wide variety of different partners. You've already named a few, but I do want to call a few out. And I'll lead with government, because government has been and always will be an important partner of ours. And Voices takes a very strong stand that we believe government can do good. That really is often the heart of system transformation. And so if you want to push a lever in transforming systems, you probably have to be engaging with your government leaders. So we certainly have strong and deep relationships and partnerships there. They often look to us. One, because they may be lacking capacity, or they may lack some of the research expertise that we've got a really strong team that has. So government has been an important partner. Our elected officials really are a target audience for us. That is who we seek often to influence, but they also reach out to us looking for recommendations. We produce very regular, we have a voluminous cache of fact sheets on every issue related to child well-being. So we get calls from folks saying, can we see what your facts are, what your evidence is, and what your—
So you're respected as subject matter experts in this field.
Yeah. That is what we believe our sweet spot is. But I also want to call out certainly our other community partners, people who have expertise in a very specific niche area, but also our philanthropic partners. So in many ways, they're both supporting our work, but they are engaged in the community dialogue as well. And they can often help with pointing to how things are working in other states, if they're national partners or local foundations that have other connected interests that they love to bring folks together for collaboration around common issues of concern.
Okay. In terms of the future for the organization and for Georgia, do you see any particular objective that you wish to achieve within the next 3 to 5 years? You know, you have your going concern. You have ongoing programs that you've managed from year to year to year.
We absolutely have, some aspirations, some goals that we're pushing for right now with the Afterschool Network. We have a real clear goal and recommendation for the state that we are actively, in dialogue with and pushing towards, and it's called Boost 2.0. What that is for the past 3 years, talking about partnerships. We at the Afterschool Network and Voices were so honored to work alongside the Georgia Department of Education to create a new grants program. We called it Boost, the Building Opportunities in Out of School Times Grants Program. This took $85 million of the American Rescue Plan funds that came to the state and allocated $85 million to community-based after-school and summer learning programs over 3 years. On September 30th, that grant program came to a close. And so our biggest wish list item right now is really looking at the success that had. We saw innovation in communities, we saw access in communities, we saw quality in communities. That we really haven't seen in the same way before. And without additional investments, we won't be able to see that again. And so that's where we're asking for Boost 2.0 so that is our large advocacy ask at the Afterschool Network right now. It's $20 million is what we're hoping the state can invest in community-based after-school and summer learning programs, because we know that will make a huge difference in so many young people's lives and families and communities. It's just not, this is we really look at out of school time as not just a solution for young people, but how is it also supporting families, businesses, and communities? I mean, because kids need somewhere to go after 2 p.m. And how does that really generate productive businesses right now, as well as helping to create the workforce of tomorrow?
Judy, as your board members who are drawn from across the state are looking at their agenda, what's on their minds? Is it what's on Katie's minds, or are you thinking in different terms in terms of governance and how the organization is set to affect Georgia's children over the next years?
Yeah, we are undergoing a strategic visioning process. And what we're really focused on, Mark, is not just taking a look at where are kids in Georgia now, but really looking at some of the trends that we can track and trying to say, where do we think are going to be the key areas of focus in 3 to 5 years? And how can we as an organization be ahead of the curve? So I'll pause there and let Cindy talk about the board's engagement.
So let me get this straight. So you're looking right now at a 3 to 5 year horizon, and you're saying, okay, if we're going to set the organization up to achieve those objectives for Georgia's children within 3 to 5 years, first of all, what are those objectives? And second, how do we shift the organization in order to position ourselves so that we can achieve those outcomes, right?
You got it exactly right, Mark. Be careful, Cindy's going to recruit you to the board now, because that is exactly what we're trying to do. This is going to be about metrics, right? It's going to be about measurable impact, right, Cindy?
Yes, it's always, I think with our organization, you can always say that it's about measurable impact and data. I think from the board's perspective, this visioning process is taking us into an area that we're all very excited about. Some of the we're, not just talking about the next 3 to 5 years, just from what is the organization going to do, but also some of the barriers that we're experiencing currently in our environment today that might lead to unintended consequences for the things that we want to accomplish. So I'll give you an example of that we had a big discussion at our board meeting about the other day, and that is that today there's a lot of concerns about opinion versus fact. We're seeing it in our media. We're seeing it, in, all kinds of discussions about mis and disinformation. And as an organization that prides themselves on factual information, we need to make sure that we're always coming forth with information that is in fact factual and can be seen as factual. So answering questions like, how do we make sure we remain the organization of trust? And so those are very big issues for us. It's not that Boost 2.0 is not, because it is. I would say that I knew that Katie was going to say that before she said it. So, but this visioning process for us as a board and for the organization as a whole and the directors and Judy, I think is key to understanding what trends could have unintended consequences for the things we want to accomplish in the future.
I think you're all raising a really critical point, and that is that everything needs to be based on trust and a common platform on which dialogue can unfold, right? If there's no trust, you can't take any action. If there's not a common platform, a common language, as you said, Cindy, if facts are not accepted as facts, then you never get to the point of solving any problems, right, Judy?
That's exactly right. And that's why in this environment that Cindy described, this has become more important than ever, and why our role in the community and being visible and present in those community conversations and being willing to come and not just point to our fact sheets, which are outstanding, but we've got to be there to answer the questions and say what the evidence, where the evidence comes from, why we might make a recommendation. It's not going to be enough to just rest on your laurels from being trusted long ago. So we want to be front and center in the conversations, leading and convening the conversations to assure people that we are going to bring evidence-based solutions. And another really important part of the work right now, Mark, is making sure that the voice of young people is a part of the conversation as well. Because youth participation and youth voice, and we really have a number of funders who are asking us and really wanting us to ensure, are you really listening to what youth and children are saying about how services are working or not? What are the barriers they need help with? So that's been an important advancement in our work as well.
It's such an important point. It's a great point to end with, that we have to think about communication. We have to think about truth. We have to think about fundamentals in addition to the things that we generally will think about, which is what's the next program, what's the next policy, what's the next funding stream that needs to be tapped into. We're talking about some very fundamental things. How do you make sure that you're communicating with your constituents, getting them involved, ensuring representation, listening to others? Judy Fitzgerald, Executive Director, Cindy Abel, Chair of the Board of Directors, and Katie Landis, Director of the Georgia Afterschool Network of Voices for Georgia's Children. Thank you so much for educating me, for sharing with me your fantastic work, and thank you so much for your insights. It's just been great to chat with you.
Thanks for the privilege, Mark. It's been great to have the conversation with you.